Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today's Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. It's 5:30 p.m. and we're doing a study session. It's going to be two study sessions. The first one is on Van Born overlay presented by Wade Trim, and the second one is going to be immediately followed by the Planning Commission ordinance presented by Corporation Counsel Miyake. Ali Deeb, you want to go ahead and start with us? And if you could do me a favor, Mr. Deeb, if you could give the general audience, I mean, obviously all of us are familiar with this, and so are you, of course, because you've been working on this 24/7. But if you could give the general audience just a general, maybe one or two or three sentences idea of what, not so much what today's presentation is all about, just the total package, what this whole thing about Van Born is all about,
right.
Please.
Thank you, Council Chair. Tonight we have before you the final outcome of the Van Born Overlay District. Now, this is just in general, this district, as we all know, Van Born borders two cities, our city and the city of Taylor. And the idea was for the gateway overlay as an ordinance to try to, the objective was to create, to enhance the appearance of both cities in the general area of Van Born. And so by introducing building design requirements, and when we say an overlay, and I know this created a lot of confusion, this is not to replace all of our existing codes. This is in addition to, these are the requirements, if you will, amendment, addendum. This is the requirements for work within that area. And for uniformity purposes, we're coordinating with the city of Taylor, because one side is Dearborn Heights, one side is Taylor. And this will create the objectives to create a positive impression for both cities and to improve the vehicular and pedestrian circulations within that area. Now, the full impact will not be seen overnight, obviously, because you're not going to demo and rebuild the area. But what you got to do is you're going to start someplace by creating the standards and then implementing them on both sides of the street. So us and Taylor will implement both requirements. And as businesses come to the city or renovate or construct, so new construction, renovations, improvements, then you apply the new standards. And over time, what you're going to do is, you'll have the identity to that location. You create an identity. You people will be able, and thanks to Councilman Winslow, I think in your package you'll see the first business that was renovated, even though you haven't officially adopted the ordinance. They created and they put the sign on that gas station on the northwest corner, which is the gas station on Van Born and Telegraph.
Which one is that one?
The
Marathon.
I think
Brand new.
It's the one
Just redone, yeah.
Yeah,
it was redone, and I took the pictures, and you have it in your package.
So in summary, just because I've been a part of these meetings for a while, as I know the mayor also, and you have been, I've been in, not the specific meeting, but I'm talking about the meetings we had for the general public. But in summary, the plan is for some of the newer council members, the plan is to have Taylor and us combine together to make Van Born a much nicer looking street, improve the aesthetics, improve the looks of a lot of the businesses, improve, they're going to have new roadway, they're going to have better landscaping, better signage.
And standards, construction standards. So
right.
basically, if you're built on either side of the street, so if you're in the Taylor side or the Dearborn Heights side, it's uniform. So we're creating an image, an identity, if you will, an identity to the area. So when we both adopt the same ordinance, businesses on both sides will create, so lighting level, finishing levels, a setback, parking, landscaping, pedestrian, all that stuff will be uniform on both
And the intent is to get that business corridor moving in the right direction and then improve the types of services and businesses available to the residents.
Yes. So the balance here and the challenge between us and for both cities and the consultants, and in a minute you're going to hear from the consultant, is to not make the ordinance so costly as to be cost prohibitive. Because you wanted to improve it, but you also wanted to make it affordable. So it's a balance thing. And I believe what you have before you, and we went back and forth, and there were many reviews, and I know Councilman Wenzel and the consultant obtained, reviews from both cities, and improvements were made, and what you have before you now, if adopted, is in my opinion, a good policy to implement and to adopt.
Council Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the original plan was unbelievably too expensive. It was cost prohibitive. It was like $1 million, over $1 million a mile. Same thing with the E-Course Creek with the, these projects have to be doable.
I know, and since, and this started before my time, but when I got involved, the meetings that I attended between us and the city of Taylor, I think we both had the same objective, to make it affordable, so that I'm not driving businesses or make it cost prohibitive for someone to locate in that area. Or if you intend on renovating, you want to make sure that what the requirements are not driving businesses away. I believe this is a good start.
Council Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
See, years ago, there was a discussion because of all the auto repair businesses located on both sides, and then further west of Telegraph, all the truck repair businesses and tire places and so forth, of making it like an auto plaza.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't work because they're like you say, there are no standards. There's
Right.
tire places with an apartment upstairs and.
So as long as they met the building codes, they were able to build. But now what you have is you have an identity and standards for businesses located in that area. So in that area, when someone goes in to either start a new business, to renovate, or to build, will have to follow the new ordinance. Makes sense? So what I wanted to do is have Mr. Arthur Mullen from Wade Trim, who was our consultant on this project, go through, and then if you have questions afterwards, we'll be able to discuss it, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deeb.
Council Chair, if you can allow him to finish this,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it's
what
a
I was gonna
lengthy
say.
one before, like, questions, you can, if you,
I think
because
it's a
a
good idea.
lot of questions will be answered during the presentation.
Sure. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Council Member and Council Chair and Council Members and Mayor for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Arthur Mullen. I work with Wade Trim in our planning group, and I want to give you a little bit of background about how we got here. Some of you were with us at the beginning, and it's been a process, and I'll answer some questions that have already been brought up about timing and costs and the like. So a little bit of the project background. One, we want to talk a little bit about the Van Born Road Improvement Plan. That's the one that started in 2017 and carried through the end of 2018. We had members of both communities involved and the businesses along the route. This was an evaluation of existing right-of-way, so we were looking at curb cuts and driveways. We were also looking at crash data. We are looking at the entire road right-of-way width at 120 feet at the narrowest point, and it gets even wider in certain locations, and then traffic counts. You've got 8,900 to 11,500 cars traveling per day on the roadway, which is a pretty high traffic count amount. We'll talk a little bit about how that impacted some opportunities. And then we also did a land use and zoning analysis to look at what is the existing zoning in each community, what are the existing uses in each community. So do we have industrial, do we have commercial, and the like. Then we also had several public meetings to try to build some consensus. At the bottom of the image is the words that came up the most from the residents about how they felt about the community. So you can see that people, and I think this is fairly unanimous, they would like to see the corridor improved. And that is one thing that kind of came across from everyone's general consensus. The condition of the road, which we know is improving, Wayne County is repaving some segments, but it is also not just the road itself, it's the businesses along the road. And so that's kind of how we got to where we are. And then there's the steering committee, as I mentioned, was made up of some representatives of both communities and also the businesses, and your TIFA board was also represented on the steering committee as well. So this plan concluded in 2018, and we ended up having 3 different short, mid, and long-term recommendations that came out of this. One is encouraging the communities to focus on maintenance and improving the landscape. This is something you could begin right away, and both communities have begun, working with the property owners and also their own DPWs to make improvements. So I think we're starting to see some of that impact already occurring. Code enforcement has been occurring with both communities along the corridor as well, which is really trying to encourage the community property owners to bring their buildings into compliance. And then also encouraging the cities to do some low-hanging fruit beautification efforts, planting trees, and improving landscaping.
I love it.
The next step is then the joint development regulations, which is part of what we're presenting tonight, that will really look to how do we move the corridor forward. The midterm recommendations from the 2018 plan dealt with prioritizing continuous sidewalk and bike path along the route on both sides, installing lighting to enhance the safety and the aesthetic, so that we'd have lighting along the entire length evenly, support civic engagement with the neighbors and stakeholders, and then also facade improvements. And there's been some facade improvement monies being spent from both DDAs on both sides of the road. The long-term item is the one that we already discussed, which has got a pretty big price tag. The big part of that price tag is trying to put the power underground. That's where we got to about $1 million a mile. That is a dream. If there was funding available, it would significantly improve the aesthetic character of the corridor and then also allow you to do a different type of landscaping along the corridor. That's kind of the the dream of it. Parts of it also include, here is an example of the preferred alternative that also shows green infrastructure along both sides of the road. The idea is there a way to detain some of the water right along the roadway? And it also includes eliminating redundant drives, installing a landscape median in locations where it's possible for U-turns and cross traffic, truck traffic. And then also our goal, as I said, to bury the overhead lines. Now, the couple things that we couldn't do because of this is, as I'd mentioned, there's a lot of traffic on the road and high speed limits. So there was no ability for us to be able to have a road diet, which is to reduce the width of the roadway, and also have on road parking, so parallel parking, because the speed limit was too high. So that is a couple of things that really kind of trim down the preferred alternative. Typical streetscape plan. This is the top section. It's a little small, but that is Inkster on your left and Telegraph Road on your right, and that is what has, you can see the median across the middle. The bottom is a concept that we also discussed about a non-motorized pathway, taking advantage of the Ecorse Creek changes. Currently, almost 2.5 miles of that 4-mile stretch is under ownership of either public or large property owners, and there's an opportunity to create a bike path connection along the water where we're not going through people's backyards. So this is a vision of what's possible. The reason why this is a wonderful opportunity is your nearest east-west connector is 2 miles north, and the nearest east-west non-motorized connector south is 4 miles south. And this has been included in plans for Southeast Michigan's Greenway connections for a while. So that's kind of the general proposal description of the project that ended in 2018 and our recommendations. Kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of how we got to where we are today. Now, kind of a quick, we're going to go quickly through. I'm not sure that you all are dying to discuss zoning overlay language, so I want to just quickly give you some of the high points, and then happy to answer questions at the end if there's any specific questions. So with the steering, we worked with the municipal steering committee, which were representatives of both the cities, to really develop this language. And one of the things we want to do is, like, what is the design vision for the corridor? So we wanted to look at similar corridors around the area that were opportunities for learning and what is working in those communities. So here you see Ford Road in Canton Township. You've got decorative knee walls as landscape, pretty intensive landscaping, and then also street trees. The top right is a gas station, and it's a pretty nice looking gas station because it's actually buffered. The signage is tied into the overall landscaping as well. So kind of we're trying to think of what are the possibilities and saying that there are opportunities for us in this region to have roads that look better and look nicer and don't quite look like a 1950s, 60s urban strip. So we wanted to kind of confirm that. We also looked at Plymouth Road in Livonia. The parking lots are behind the decorative knee walls. There's on street side parking, and then there is also no parking out in front of the building, so we're kind of trying to create a street space instead of a parking lot that's along the road. Ann Arbor Road in Plymouth Township is another one that we had looked at with the committee. There's the fast food is on the left. It's pulled right up to the street. The building on the right top has outdoor seating. So we were looking at opportunities and then facade enhancements. That's an industrial building on the lower right, and that's got gooseneck lighting and some materials that are above what you would expect out of a normal industrial building. And then the final kind of concept vision that we were looking at is 5 Mile Road in Redford. And here you get to see outdoor, there's some outdoor seating as well, and mature landscaping. So we kind of wanted to be able to say, is this what we're looking for? And then if that is correct and everyone kind of agreed, then how do we create the regulations that we can then use to help drive that to come to fruition? So with that, we then, just getting my notes, is kind of like what are the sections we're going to look at? And I'm going to quickly go through these because this is getting into the weeds for us planners. One is building design. How do we address scale, facade, architectural details, articulation? We want to make sure that these structures that are coming are fitting into a space and not really just a single flat facade. So that's what we're looking here. Siting, where is the buildings going to be located? Making sure that they're up against the street, so we're encouraging pedestrian walking and also a visual in an enclosed space. Screening materials, making sure that we're screening facility functions, garbage, making sure that the top of building materials are also screened if there's HVAC. So we're really trying to make sure that we're creating an aesthetically pleasing space. And then also landscaping, the amount and where that should be located is also included in the regulations, and then lighting. And in both of these communities, we have a little bit of different amounts, so we're going to try to make sure that we have uniformity throughout the district, and if there's a missing spot in say, Taylor, the overlay district in Taylor will include those regulations. If it's missing in Dearborn Heights, that would be included in Dearborn Heights. So we're trying to make sure that we have uniformity across. Also parking. We all know that parking lots are pretty darn ugly unless you encourage them to do something a little bit different, and then also your signage. We did the drafting of the language. After we confirmed the goals, we then had 6 drafts that we worked through the steering committee. The mayor was at several of those, so was Commissioner Wenzel, Mr. Deeb, and representatives from the city of Taylor as well. And then we presented those to the steering committee of property and business owners, and now we're into the adoption process. So with that, to approve new zoning language, it has to come from your planning commission. They have to have a public hearing, and then it would then come back to you for formal adoption. So we just kind of wanted, we know that it was important for you all when you approved this project and partnering with Taylor, that we didn't want to have this go on forever. COVID kind of slowed us down a little bit, getting some meetings together, but we wanted to be able to report back to you that we're at this point, and we will be back with the final language shortly.
All right, well, thank you, Art. First question I have for you is the same question I've asked at every single one of these meetings. And I like basics, simple, vanilla guy. When will Joe Public see any change on anything on Van Born? Because I've been a part of this since 2017, and I've had concerns, and hopefully not, because I guess it's, on a positive note, it's still going. But on a challenging note is I or Joe Public have seen next to nothing on the ground as far as any changes. So then you start to wonder, I start to wonder, and Joe Public starts to wonder, it's just a bunch of lines that the government has given us, when in reality nothing's going to happen. When will Joe Public see, and I've asked the same question every time, when will Joe Public see something on the ground where, oh my God, I can see changes, it's a brand new road, new facade on 8 buildings, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, so thank you for that question. That's, I think, important, because the residents are the ones who told us at the beginning that, hey, we don't like what it looks like. One caveat is this overlay piece is a over time process. So this is not going to be able to go out to a property owner and say, you must conform with these designs. They have to come in to either one of the 2 building departments and request a building permit. And that's when you'll see that side of the changes. So it is going to, this overlay in this type of land use is a 10, 20-year process. We're starting to see changes already. I believe that the gas station that was mentioned by Mr. Dibb is already at, changes were made to that to improve the aesthetic character of that from what was originally proposed to come in line with this.
Yeah.
But with all due respect, but that's something that can happen, that's happening right now on Ford Road in Wisconsin and Iowa and Dallas, Texas. I mean, there's always new businesses opening up, and they're typically going to remodel it. I'm talking about, I don't want to use the words massive changes, but actual digestible changes that Joe Public can see. Not one gas station, I get it, but I mean, there's changes to gas stations and restaurants all the time.
Right. Well, what I will say is this process is not going to lead to major change. This overnight, this portion of the overlay district language can't, because we don't have the tool to hammer the property owner on their head and say, you have to come into alignment with these requirements today.
But a new business would have to follow these requirements.
Yes.
That is correct. And so that's why it's a transformative over time.
But see, then that could take, just thinking out loud here, it could take 10, 12, 15 years.
Correct.
Council Chair.
Yes.
So one of the things also we discussed is the infrastructure money, and not the ARPA, something coming later, that we can actually, depending on how much money the cities will get, from the infrastructure, we can actually, but again, this is not guaranteed. We have to see what numbers come up, to the city of Dearborn Heights or Taylor. We can say, I mean, if they allocate money, infrastructure money for both cities, we can give incentives to business owners. We can say, hey, we have X amount of dollars, we can allocate, this much, we can give businesses incentive by giving them certain amount of money for them to do modification, to do updates, upgrades to the area off of Van Born. So I know we talked about it with Taylor, and that's something, that we're actually thinking about, but depending on how much money we get. And we did discuss this with several businesses in the area. Everybody has the same idea, they want to improve businesses on Van Born, both sides, Dearborn Heights and Taylor. So with that, they're starting to listen, they want to improve traffic on that road, try to get people to stop and shop on Van Born. So there's a lot of things that are in work, not just the ordinance. There's a lot of things that we're working on. It just, we've been working on this for the last year and a half. And there's a lot of positive things. As they mentioned, the owner of Bellagio, Sam Baidoun, he didn't have to spend tens and thousands of dollars in the front area of his business, but we reached out to him, and with the help of Councilman Wenzel, we talked him into like, hey, this process is coming, and he did invest the money, even though he didn't have to. And right now, he has the property across the street on the Taylor side. He's actually thinking about doing the same thing, because every business in the area wants to improve the street. They want to improve the foot traffic, people walking, and also people driving up and shopping. And there's a lot of, I see a lot of excitement, especially what we're talking about. They're seeing, we have stuff documented now. Both cities are in collaboration trying to do something positive. I mean, as they mentioned, it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're trying to speed it up by trying to allocate some money through whatever means possible.
And I agree, we gotta put some sort of incentive, because the reality is most businesses will not just automatically change on their own unless we give them some sort of incentive. And I can tell you, I can speak for myself personally, I have no problem with us creating some incentives, obviously financial, for some of these businesses to change the facade. And I know at one point you had talked about working, it was either with the county, I think it was with the county, on creating either grants and then also, of course, paying for redoing a lot of the roads there, because they are in pretty bad shape, which obviously would help. Okay.
So please keep in mind, though, we're looking at a citywide master plan next year, right? So that's going to be in our budget for next year. This is where all these ideas come together. So if we decide, if we adopt these standards or this overlay or this new ordinance, we are going to put that in our package when we go out and look at our master plan. That will be the roadmap to where we need to go and what level it finishes. This is only telling you, this is the idea. This is the image that I want for that location, and then we'll go. So this will be included, and that will be what will generate the capital list of capital projects. So it's going to be a step-by-step process, but once you decide this is where we want to go, and we adopt it, both us and Taylor, that's the first step in trying to get it to reality.
And also,
Council Chair?
Yeah.
Well, let me
I'm sorry, there's another thing also with that, not so much with these ordinances, there's also the Ecorse Creek. So that's another step that we're actually, we're working on dual paths, maybe like 3-4 paths, for that area. The Ecorse Creek is a huge problem in that area. So a lot of businesses, they're shying away from investing money in that location because of the flooding. So we do have another plan that we're working on, obviously with the Army Corps of Engineers, and the money that, we talked about, the $1.675 million that they're doing, just trying to, for the engineering costs for the basin off of Inkster. So once we start, there's a lot of different programs we're working on also for the Ecorse, for the cleanup, trying to dredge it, trying to get some more money, some more funding through our congressional delegates. Once they see a lot of stuff happening, especially off the Ecorse Creek, a lot of investors, they're going to come in and they're going to invest in the area because that area is untapped. So once we fix that issue with the creek, I'm very positive talking to a lot of business owners, they're going to want to come back and invest.
If there was ever a time for business to open up or buy in that area, this is it, because they're getting a cents on the dollar. And once all these renovations finish, you're not going to be able to afford to buy or open up a business on Van Born. So if there was ever a time, this is it. And I'm glad the city is still focused on this, because my concern with this, Mr. Mayor, is this project started with our past mayor, God rest his soul, Mayor Paletko, and I was concerned at the time that, I was hoping from him, and that it was not just lip service that we're giving to the residents. And I'm glad that he continued to go with it. Unfortunately, he passed away. And I'm glad that you, as a mayor, are continuing to go with this, because we can't let this go. And I challenge all of us council members to continue to push administration, to continue pushing in the direction to fix that street to a level that it should be, at the level that it should be in Dearborn Heights. Because Ford Road is doing very well, which is great. And Telegraph is doing pretty good, which is great. But the residents in the South Heights area still need a lot of good businesses to be, some of them complain they have very little restaurants to go to, they have almost no supermarkets, and they complain they have to drive around Van Born and go over to halfway down Telegraph to get their everyday services, and that is just not right, unfortunately. And I'm not saying it's this particular administration or the past administration's fault, but it's got to be focused on. This has to be a major focus, and I'm glad it is.
Well, it's huge, especially with the facility, the Ford facility just down the street. I've talked to a lot of engineers that I've worked with in the past. They like to have a place where they can go eat, and like you mentioned, they have to go all the way down Telegraph to grab something to eat, and they work just down the street, off of Van Born.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Council Chair?
Councilman, go ahead.
When we first started this, everybody was saying what you were saying, when can we see something? And about six months ago or so, we were going to a meeting, and we noticed that gas station was getting torn down. And we contacted the mayor, and he informed us, who, in the building department, who owned the property there, and he told us it was Sam Baydoun from Bellagio. And the mayor got us together, and we talked to him, and we told him what our plan was, and we said, we wanted to do something so people could see something happening, because this ordinance is going to take a long time. And he said, well, what do you want? I mean, he just said, well, whatever you want, I'll do it. We said, well, how about a sign? And he says, well, yeah, what do you want on the sign? And this was something that we put together, just like you were saying, when can we see something? Well, now you're seeing something. Now people aren't going to be satisfied with just a sign. They're going to see something else. But anything you do, or any monies you want to get in grants, you have to have an ordinance in place already.
Yep.
So that's what this is all about, is getting the ball rolling. And there's a lot of business owners up and down Van Born on both sides that are just chomping at the bit to do something nice in front of their building, but they don't want to be the only one. So we get this ordinance together. We talked to Tifa, and Tifa is anxious because on Van Born Road from Telegraph to Inkster and Taylor is a Tifa zone, and just the opposite on Taylor's side is from Telegraph to Pelham Road is Tifa. So there's Tifa covered on both sides, both the cities, all the way this whole stretch. So, I mean, we started something, we got a sign. Sam Baydoun was more than generous, like the mayor said. He owns a property kitty corner from there. We talked to him already. He says, hey, I'm willing to do something on that. And this is like the cornerstone to Telegraph and Van Born of this project. So we've done a ton of work. These guys right here, a ton of work behind the scenes. If people say we haven't seen anything, I mean, you should see the hours these guys got in it and their commitment to this project. It's outstanding. These guys are doing a great job, but we are doing something, and believe me, some stuff's going to start happening soon.
I have no doubt. The only thing is, I always like to see boots on the ground. I can see boots on the ground. That's when I know things are happening. Because, with due respect, engineers can keep this thing going and going and going and going and going and going and going. I want my everyday mama and papa to see stuff on the road. That's what counts.
Council Chair.
That's all I'm going to keep pushing for.
We got a sign. Good. We got the sign.
I have a couple of questions real quick that I wrote over here. I know one of the things that you said is that we couldn't, reduce the speed limit. Have we tried to work hand in hand with the state? Have we reached out to MDOT or anybody?
No, we haven't, but based on the classification, the road classification, it's not an easy thing to do. There are.
But I'm asking, did we look into it?
Not to my knowledge, no. We
No.
didn't.
One thing is it's a county road, and they're going to set the speed limit at the 85th percentile speed, and so which is a whole different problem. But the 85th percentile speed is what's the speed of the vehicle, what's the 85th out of 100 cars, at what speed are they traveling down that road? And then they select that speed limit. And that's the standard for speed selection in Michigan right now.
But I think if we consider something I was reading, that if it becomes a downtown district, then they would work with different municipalities. That's happening in Plymouth, where now it's 25 miles per hour, and they're allowing even speed bumps. I mean, there's just something that we should just, not cross all our, dot our i's, cross our t's on that.
Right.
But that's just my first question to you. My second question is, I think you answered it, but it's kind of like what Councilman said here. A lot of the landlords don't want to make this adjustment and change is because out of fear. There's still, an issue with the Ecorse Creek. There's, what are we doing to insure them between Allen Park and Dearborn Heights that, hey, this is not going to, you put all this money into it, you're not going to flood.
So the issue with the creek, as the mayor indicated, that is a whole separate issue.
But the
And we
fear
are
is-
actively, just so we understand, we are daily, and I'm not exaggerating now, this is becoming a full-time activity for us. The time to do something about the creek challenge, I will say, is now, because we're attracting a lot of attention. And not just, half the day today I spent with SEMCOG and the Corps of Engineers, basically just looking at the challenges that they all agree with us. The section of the creek within Dearborn Heights is the most problematic section. Not upstream, not downstream, we're the most problematic section. So we're attracting attention. The mayor indicated that we have the design money now. So what we wanted to do is be proactive, and he reached out to the Congresswoman yesterday, I believe, and immediately she had the staff contact us. So now we have a seat at the table. You keep in mind, the Corps of Engineers doesn't report to us. The Corps of Engineers, if they get money, they do their thing. They don't, we coordinate with them, but so, and then the client to them is the County of Wayne, because the Drain Commission is the owner and the operator, if you will, of a drain. So we didn't even have a seat at the table. Well, now we do. So we're taking our concerns, we're getting our own data, we're flying the river, we're going to identify locations of concern, areas of concern, and bring them over to the table. So today we were assured a seat at the table, and we are not going to continue to do, restudy and more studies and do another study. Like 600 studies are enough. So we're going to proceed with the boots on the ground. I call them, I want to see shovels on the ground. So we're headed in the right direction. I think this effort now, combined with what we're doing to the area in general, and it's going to help quite a bit.
Yeah,
That's
I agree. And I thank you for that, Mr. Deep.
no.
My next question is, I saw in some of the photos which looked amazing, they look beautiful. I know I seen some, in front of City Hall, when you're walking in, you would see what we're doing, but I also saw there were some flowers and little bushes. Who's in charge of keeping up with that? Is that going to be on the city, or is that going to be on the landlord? Or would that be what the ordinance is still being designed?
Yeah, go ahead.
These are requirements for the property owner, and so that is because that is the one who's being required to install the landscaping and maintain it. So it's not going to be an unfunded mandate to the city to have to try to maintain, which we've known in other communities where we do a downtown district and there isn't any maintenance, and the property owners are implied to maintain it and they don't. So these requirements are land side of the road right of way. So this is on their property, so they would have to maintain it.
Just keep in mind, too, when Arthur mentioned the infrastructure requirements, the underground, there are ways. Instead of us picking up the tab, we're in contact now with DTE. DTE they do their own master plan. They want to sell their power, right? So they do their own master plan, but you need to show them what you're doing in order for them to accommodate you. There is no unlimited anything. There's no unlimited power. There's no unlimited, infrastructure. But you need to go to them, approach them, and say, "Look, this is what I have in mind for this area," and then they can accommodate you. But so we can there are other venues instead of us just picking up the tab.
Then just my last question, I'm sorry, I had
quickly.
these written down. The last question is, I know the mayor said that we could potentially use ARPA money, but don't quote him on it. If we can't use ARPA
No,
money,
I
then...
didn't say, I said we're waiting to see if we can get infrastructure money, not ARPA.
Infrastructure.
Okay, well, if we don't get infrastructure money, can we then give these new business owners a tax incentive that if you do X amount and spend X amount?
Well, that's something that has to go in front of council, so I would do a proposal. Once we get everything up and running, then I'll do a proposal, bring it in front of council.
Okay. Mayor, I'm going to go
No,
Mayor.
I
'cause
just
he has
wanted to
something
bring
he had
up-
say, and then Councilwoman.
No, when you mentioned, right now, more than ever, we have, as Mr. Deep mentioned, we do have not just a seat at the table. We're getting calls from different communities, from congressional, somebody from the governor's office. They're really concerned now with the issues that we have. Obviously, we're spending a lot of money, FEMA money, on the Ecorse Creek issue. And just three days ago, I was at an event with a few mayors from another city upstream. They're concerned about the creek as well, and it's affecting them, and they want to actually participate, see what they can do to help us with our issue. So this issue is not just Dearborn Heights, it's affecting several communities.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman, go ahead.
Yes, I see that we're working on the roads on Van Born. Do we have a time frame for road repair, say between Beach Daily and Telegraph?
This is Wayne County now, right?
It's all on the
Talking about
county.
on the county side, yeah. And I believe it was supposed to be completed by August, but don't quote me on this.
Yeah.
I have to check, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Council Chair,
Councilman, go ahead.
I want to go back to Councilman Baydun's question about the flower beds and the bushes and stuff. So is that going to be phase one, or we have to wait until somebody changes businesses or pull a permit, or?
Well, property owners can do improvements on their property without, landscaping like that, that's basically maintenance work, they can do now if they wanted to do some beautification work. There's opportunity for the city to also expend some funds to do some improvements at the intersection, say, and there's been some talk in the city of Taylor about that as well. So there's opportunities, but it really is on private property, and the private property owners, what we're hoping is that they're going to see some activity, code enforcement, facade improvements, that all of a sudden they then take some interest in doing some improvements on their own property.
So basically, you're saying we could do that before any business
Yeah.
change?
So what I wanted to point out, though, I mentioned the master plan because the image that you're trying to create, whether you want it to be a downtown street or a certain image, you put that in your master plan and then you start taking steps. So we may not be able to go, as Arthur indicated, the property owners are responsible for landscaping within the property limits. So like inside the parking lots, the city can do their part on our side, in the common place. And that's what we will identify in the master plan and then put a plan to get us there. So yes, that's our part. So you wanted to give them an incentive. They see the common place, the public space, and then you implement the changes in your ordinance as they pull permits and.
Thank you, Mr. Deeb. Actually, this was my second question, since you mentioned the master plan. So if we adopt this right now, and the master plan, you said by next year,
Yeah,
do you think there's going to be any contradiction between the two? Do we have to change this, or?
Absolutely.
This should be fine?
No, what we want to do is we run, you basically dictate what the master plan outputs. So they will be a consultant, but we will put the parameters, we identify the scope and what we want it to do. This will be in addition to. And then also the same thing is true when you do any work on the creek. What we wanted to do on the creek, we'll take that into account, which was the main reason why we want to have a seat at the table. So if the county or the Corps of Engineers are doing something, we don't want it to contradict what we're doing. We want it to be part of it.
As long as we don't have to do this again after the master
No,
plan.
Council
Okay.
Chair?
Go ahead.
To answer the questions about these flower beds and stuff like that, right now, that's strictly voluntary by the business owners to do something like that. And there's several businesses on Van Born, and one of them is a Cordy's Collision, and Lisa Cordy is working really wall with me. And we've got permission from Dearborn Heights and Taylor to use their logos, and we're coming up with a newsletter. I've contacted the clerk's office, and they're going to give me a list of all the businesses, addresses. And we're doing the same with Taylor, and we're going to put out a newsletter, and we're going to say, hey, let's plant flowers if you're going to. Make them red and white. We haven't decided, but we're going to come up with something in the next month for that. But for right now, all that stuff is just voluntary, you know, and they say,
Nice.
I want to be part of this, or in the fall, you know, scarecrow thing, or some kind of theme to go on. And just to get everyone on the same page and looking good all the way down.
Well, also, as the new businesses start to open up and put on a nice facade, it's going to be the new thing to keep up with the Joneses, you know, just because your business, if you have an
Competition.
older business that's not well kept,
Exactly.
and I've got, you know, 2, 3 businesses on this side, maybe 1 or 2 on this side, and they've opened up and done a nice facade. To keep up with the Joneses, I'm going to have to clean up my shop to make sure it looks nice enough to compare to others. Just want to make sure, Mr. Deep, was there anybody else that was presenting, or was Art the only one? Okay. So with that being the case, I'm going to go now, as long as no other council members have any other comments, I'm going to go to public comments next, and I don't know, Chip, were you planning on speaking? Nobody else speaking, right? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go to public comments next. Anybody from the audience have any public comments? Come on, you can do it, Vince. No?
No.
Okay. So anybody else from Zoom that has any comments in regards to this? Madam Chair? I'm sorry, Madam Clerk? Anybody on Zoom? Well, let's wait until Angela's done. Anybody on Zoom, Angela?
No, Stan said no.
None? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much, Art, and Mr. Deeb, and Mr.
Thank you very
Mayor,
much.
Great
and our
presentation,
Corporation
guys.
Council.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice presentation, but please, don't forget this. Let's keep this as, that and Ecorse Creek, top priority. Because I'm not going to let you guys forget it. All right. Next, we're going to take a 5-minute break, 7-minute break, and then go ahead and move into the Planning Commission ordinance presented by Corporation Counsel Gary Miyake. Thank you.